Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going into quite a story. An 18th century saga, shipwreck, mutiny, murder. It's all in David Grann's book, The Wager. So the basic setup is this. 1740, HMS Wager sails out. Secret mission against Spain. They're after something called the prize of all the oceans.
Sounds epic, right?
Totally epic. But it doesn't spin well. The ship wrecks off Patagonia. We're talking May 1741, super remote coast. And you've got 145 survivors just stranded.
Stranded is putting it mildly.
Yeah, and that's not even the main twist. What's really wild is what happens next. Two different groups of these survivors eventually make it back to England, months apart.
Okay.
And they have completely different stories, like polar opposites. One group says, we were heroes, we survived against all odds. The other group, they point fingers, mutiny, even murder.
Wow. So who do you believe?
Exactly, that's the crux. It all leads to this massive court-martial back in Britain. The Admiralty, basically the Navy's high court, has to figure out what actually happened. Truth itself is on trial. High-stakes stuff. Before we even get to the island drama, though, Grann paints a picture of the wager itself. It wasn't exactly setting sail in peak condition, was it?
Oh, not even close. He calls it a sorry lot.
Yeah.
And for good reason. The ship was kind of dilapidated, understaffed,
And the crew.
already decimated. Almost half the original 250 men were dead before the wreck. Typhus, scurvy, the usual horrors of 18th century sea voyages, but maybe worse here.
So it's not just a story of a sudden disaster, it's systemic failure.
Absolutely. It shows you the brutal reality of naval life back then. And then after the wreck, marooned on Wager Island, it gets even more intense.
How so?
We'll think total breakdown. Anarchy. Grann describes warring factions. It's like a real-life, high-stakes Lord of the Flies.
And you have these key figures, right? Captain Cheap.
Yeah, Captain Sheep, described as pretty hot-headed, tyrannical even. And then there's Gunner Bulkley, who comes across as more level-headed, maybe compassionate.
And they clash.
Massively. It boils over into actual mutiny. Cheap wants one thing. Bulkley and his faction want another. Specifically, they wanted to try a different, arguably safer route home. Cheap refuses. Boom. Mutiny.
What I found really fascinating is how Grann handles these opposing accounts. He doesn't just tell you who's right.
No. He creates what he calls a Rashomon-like atmosphere. You get both sides, both seemingly plausible, both deeply flawed. Each side is, shaping the story for their own survival back at the court-martial.
Shading the facts, maybe.
Definitely shading the facts. Or maybe just remembering things differently under extreme stress. It forces you, the listener, to really wrestle with how subjective truth can be, especially when your life depends on which version gets believed.
Which brings up a bigger point Grann makes about who controls history itself.
Right. He digs into how empires, like Britain back then, actively trying to, rewrite or even erase parts of history that didn't fit their narrative, their image of being somehow inherently superior.
Sounds familiar.
It really does. Grann explicitly draws parallels. He talks about this 18th century war over the truth involving disinformation and claims of essentially fake news. It shows how manipulating narratives for power isn't new at all.
There's also that detail about the indigenous people, the Kaweskar. They helped the castaways initially.
Yeah, a really telling part of the story. The Kaweskar shared food, local knowledge, crucial stuff for survival. But the British sailors still caught up in their own prejudices, their delusions of racial superiority, as Grann puts it.
They drove them away.
It drove them away. It's this small-scale tragedy that perfectly mirrors the larger dynamics of empire. It's like the whole idea of empire, its arrogance and its failures, is playing out right there on that tiny, miserable island.
It's incredible how Grann pulls all this together. The research must have been immense.
So phenomenal. 6 years he spent sifting through logbooks, personal diaries, the actual court-martial records, just impeccable research.
And the rest?
Eloquent, but also really propulsive. You feel like you're reading a thriller or maybe an Agatha Christie mystery where you're trying to piece together the clues. It just pulls you right in.
No wonder it hit #1, and Scorsese and DiCaprio were making a movie.
Makes total sense. It's got everything.
So, when you step back, what's the big takeaway here? It's more than just an old sea story, right?
Absolutely. The Wager is, I think, a really deep look at human nature under pressure. What happens when society breaks down? And it's about truth, how fragile it is, how easily it gets manipulated, and, of course, the long shadow of empire.
It definitely makes you think. How are stories being shaped now, especially when power or reputation or even survival is involved?
Yeah, what truths are we maybe accepting without question? What parts of the story might be left out, even today?
Something to keep in mind as you continue your own deep dives.